Hello, my name is Keith Spaniel. I'm the Chief Pilot for the Illinois Department of Transportation. Tim Grigsby is assisting me today with this general discussion, and he's the Quality Control Chief Inspector also for the Illinois Department of Transportation. Bob?
And I'm Bob Gonnerman. I'm a lieutenant with the Capitol Airport Department of Public Safety. We wanted to produce this video as a training tool to assist crash fire rescue departments and members who would possibly be responding to an aircraft incident on the aircraft that the state of Illinois flies in the unlikely event that the crews would be incapacitated, and that way we as responders will know the actions to take for various ARF services that we would need to perform on the aircraft, as such as shutting down the engines, activating the extinguishing systems, and that kind of thing. So go ahead.
With no further ado, we'll get started on this discussion of the King Air 350, which will be the first aircraft that we take a look at today. Okay, let's just start from this direction, and we'll move around the airplane. Underneath the nacelle here is where our onboard fire suppression is. What it does is it provides the suppression around the external portion of the engine inside of the nacelle. Okay guys, let's move around the other side of the airplane. If we look at the right-hand wing root, we observe the battery location. To disconnect the battery, we simply turn the knob and disconnect the battery, which completely removes electrical power from the airplane. We will continue around the right-hand side of the airplane. Obviously, the right side is a duplicate of the left side. Once again, in the rear portion of the nacelle, we have the onboard fire suppression for the right engine. We have the main and auxiliary fuel tanks. Each wing is filled with fuel, and the airplane carries 539 gallons of fuel. So an airplane that's fully loaded with fuel has 539 gallons. The passenger and crew capacity on the state of Illinois aircraft, it's 9 passengers and a crew of 2. And the state of Illinois aircraft always fly with a crew when we are transporting passengers. A full crew of 2, I should say. As you can see, this panel is open. We won't climb up inside, but the oxygen bottle is right here in the upper portion of the tail. There really is no way for any disconnect of the oxygen bottle, but we do have the shutoffs in the cockpit, which we'll address later on in the discussion. The oxygen lines come out of the bottle, which is located right up here in the aft empennage of the airplane. They travel down and they run along the, the lower portion of the fuselage here, and they run forward. We also have one capillary line that runs above the cabin, and that takes care of the passengers. Am I correct, Tim? And so the best cut-in points on the aircraft are somewhere level with the top of this wing as you come back aft, and then no higher than the top of the windows on the top. Also in the aft empennage, we've got the cockpit voice recorder, which most likely you probably will have to go up into this portal here or do a cut-in to get to it. It's closer up here in the center to the top portion of the empennage. We also have the ELT, the emergency locator transmitter, that's located in this part of the airplane, which transmits a beacon to give our location. And typically we can turn that on from the cockpit, or upon impact of the airplane, it automatically turns the emergency locator transmitter on so that we transmit a beacon to ATC. As we come around to the left side of the airplane, we're going to take a better look at the exits to the airplane. Obviously, the first exit here is the main cabin door, and a secondary exit is the emergency exit above the wing.
Okay.
I think something important to note here is there's actually instructions on the main cabin door as well as up on the emergency exit. And the button right here where I have my finger is what we'll push to release the main cabin door handle. Notice, if I don't push the button, you cannot open the main cabin door. So we'll push the button, and then that releases the cabin door handle to go ahead and allow the door to open. Now notice, this is important, the door typically will fall in slow fashion. However, if this snubber, is it, Tim? If the snubber has been damaged, this door may fall open. Another point about doors potentially in a crash sequence is the airplane may not know it's on the ground. So the airplane may have pressure on board. May or may not. By the time you respond, it's probably leaked out, but it could. The problem with that, and typically there's a safety device that does not allow you to open the door, but if that's been damaged too, if you go to open the door, this door could actually fly open under pressure, something to be aware of when coming in a main cabin door. These doors have been known to injure people when they come flying open under pressure. Yeah, if you find that the door will not open, the easiest way is to go ahead and break a window in the cabin, and that will let the aircraft depressurize, which will allow the safety feature to disengage, which then will allow you to come open the main cabin door. But just know that the pressure's coming out when you break the window, so eye protection. Let's continue around here, around the left wing, and go up on the wing and take a closer look at the emergency exit. And typically we refer to that emergency exit above the wing as a plug. That plug does not come out, so you can pull on it as much as you want, but the plug is only made to go inward. And I'll show you as well, the instructions are right above the emergency exit to open that exit as well. Okay, as we arrive up here above the wing, we've got an emergency exit above each wing, obviously on each side of the airplane. Once again, here's our instructions denoted by the 1, 2, and 3, and then the instruction right adjacent to the number. As I said before, this exit does not pull out. You cannot pull out on the exit. It has to go inward. So let's just follow the numbers, push in on the tab, pull up on the handle, and then push in on the door. And I'm not going to drop the door all the way out, but I will show you that the plug falls inward. Now, what you can do is once you get the plug out of the frame, then what you can do is maneuver the plug, pull it out, and get rid of it so that you do not stop an exit way for the passengers to get out. Okay, as we move into the cabin, I want to show one thing before we actually go up into the cabin. This cabling can be removed to make more room to remove or put cargo or people, whatever it may be, in or out of the cabin. And the way we do this is we pull up on the door, and we can disconnect the cable and let this side fall, and then the door has better access. Let's go ahead and put this back together. Okay. And now we'll move in toward the cockpit, and on the way in, we'll discuss where our emergency lighting is, where our fire extinguishers are. Okay, we're now sitting at the aft end of the aircraft at the main cabin door. Right here just inside the door to the aft side of the main cabin door is a fire extinguisher. Just above my head, typically these lights will come on impact. If they don't, you can manually turn the exit light on. Finally, if you would come in the aircraft and you would find that these tabs somehow were in that position, you cannot open the overwing emergency exit with this tab in that position. So if you cannot open from the outside, probably this safety tab or locking tab has been moved under impact. As crew members, we always, especially in an emergency situation, we always usually have something published to help us get through an emergency situation. So in our emergency checklist, it says emergency engine shutdown on the ground. This is the quickest way to get the airplane all shut down, and I'll just run through the items and show you where they are. And we'll start at the beginning and run through it to the finish, and at that point the airplane is completely shut down, electrical off, so on and so forth. So
Where would this
typically this emergency checklist in our airplane is right behind the captain. The reason we do it that way is all of our crew members are co-captains, so typically the pilot who's flying is sitting on the left side closest to all the switches and controls. So us positioning our checklist here behind the captain gives easy access to the co-pilot to pick the checklist up and read it for the captain who's flying. And so let's just go through this step by step. Condition levers are located right here. There's two of them, one for each engine. Typically, what'll happen is these condition levers will be in that position. So it says condition levers, fuel cutoff. That's actually, obviously, what you're doing is cutting off the fuel to each engine. Now, what's important to know about these levers is I slide them forward, you can watch them snap in. There's a little hook right there that does not allow you inadvertently to shut them off in flight. So Bob, just try to pull those back and see how far they get. See, they're locked there. Importantly, you have to pull out and then pull it back. On each side, you got to bring them outward and then pull them to fuel cutoff. These are obviously connected to our fuel cutoff valves, and this is typically how we shut the motors or the engines down. Now, let's move to the next item on the checklist. Propeller prop levers, feather. Typically, you'll find the prop levers in that position. All you do is pull them back, and what that does is change the pitch in each blade on each propeller, one for each engine, one for each propeller, and it turns those blades to a very steep angle, which causes the whole prop assembly to slow down and stop over a period of time. Firewall fuel valves. These are the firewall fuel valves right here. Now notice, if you come close, you can see a little wire in each corner. We actually keep these tabs wired because that's our fire suppression. In an emergency, there may be a reason to shut down the engine, but not have a fire. So to follow the checklist to shut down the engine, it requires us to shut off the firewall fuel valve, but not necessarily to suppress a fire. Now what I'm going to do after we get through the checklist is I'll turn the aircraft electrical system on and you can actually see the lights. The next item on the checklist is master switch gang bar, off. The master switch gang bar is over here on the left side, and it's one long tab. And typically these switches are in the up position. So if you just take the whole tab and push down, you've shut the battery and the generator switches all off at one time. And then our final item is the battery bus emergency off switch. Typically this switch is in the norm position just as it is now. In an emergency, you pull out on the switch and you push down. This switch is such that you must pull out and then pull it down into the off position. And then that checklist is complete. Now, if for some reason you were in a big hurry and you just wanted to come right in here and shut the whole thing down quickly, you could come right here and hit your firewall fuel shutoff valves, and that stops fuel flow. It's supposed to shut off generators, or it does shut off generators. And so that would be the quickest way. However, your props may spin a bit longer because they won't go to a steep angle of pitch until the oil pressure reduces in the engine. So if you can, this is the best way, is to start at your condition levers, prop levers, firewall fuel shutoff valve, gang bar, and emergency off switch, if you can.
In the event of an engine fire, if the crew is incapacitated, the quickest way to extinguish the fire from inside the cockpit, do you need to activate the fire suppression system prior to hitting the bottles?
Let's talk about that. What you'd want to do is follow this same checklist. Our fire suppression will not work unless you push these two switches first. So this switch applies the electrical power to make this work. So you have to, if you just remember the sequence, here, here, there, fire suppress, and on over, that's how we would do it in an in-flight emergency.
And is it strictly one side per engine? You're not going to push this and get suppression on both engines and then still have a backup afterwards?
That is correct. In this particular airplane, you've got one opportunity per engine. And obviously this side works for the left engine and this side works for the right engine.
Emergency egress from the cockpit.
Emergency egress, typically a crew is trained that the captain should be the last one out to clear the airplane. Typically the last one out will grab the first aid kit and take it with them in case there's any need for that once we leave the airplane. We train here at the state of Illinois, if possible, the co-pilot must go back, help with the emergency exits, assess the emergency exits, and then help open them, unless our passengers have already started the egress on their own. But the perfect scenario is for the co-pilot to be able to get out and get control of the passengers and then orderly show them how to leave the airplane and the best way to leave the airplane. Typically, we want to always leave out the main cabin door first if possible for safety reasons and for an orderly deplanement so that nobody gets hurt after surviving some kind of emergency. Another good reason to assess on the way out, or for our co-pilots to assess, there may be a fire at the overwing exits, typically right where the engines are, and so we would hate for somebody to get out and then allow fire into the cabin and or get caught in a fire as they egress the airplane over the wing. So it's always the best way to use the main cabin door possible. Okay, you can see what the lights will look like. This actually says that the firewall valves are closed. So typically, when I push that, I arm, like I said before, I arm the fire suppression. And now you can see that it says extinguisher push. So you know that it's ready and available once you get that closed and see that light. Now that we've got Bob out of the right seat, the co-pilot seat, there is one more fire extinguisher, and I'm pointing at it, but it's right under the co-pilot seat. And so it's the same type of fire extinguisher that you'll find back by the cargo area right near the main cabin door. Okay, we're going to continue our discussion here of the Sikorsky S-76 helicopter. Probably one of the most important things for safety on the helicopter is obviously the rotor turning. And what I want to demonstrate as we look at the rotor, we've got droop stops up there on the main rotor hub assembly. Notice the little red tab. if those are not correctly positioned, this blade can come down very low. Even with the stops in, if you pan over this way, this blade can come down very low, as you can see. So when you approach the Sikorsky S-76, the best way to approach this aircraft is right from the 90-degree position. And if the pilots are not incapacitated, it is always good to get their attention before moving toward the aircraft. So in this case, this is the way you'd come in to move to the aircraft to start your operation. If we move back here to the front, I will show you where the batteries are on this aircraft. You probably can't see the disconnect, but if you come over to this side of the aircraft, it's right in this, under this covering right here. There is a battery on the left side and the right side, so we have another panel just like that one on the right side of the aircraft should you need to use it to disconnect electrical power from the aircraft. This Sikorsky carries 1,800 pounds of fuel. So as we move down the right side of the fuselage, the fuel tanks are right in this area behind the cabin. To get into this aircraft, it's simply sort of like an automobile door handle. You just pull up on the tab and you can enter the cabin or the cockpit. Now, I think one thing that's important to note is there is a wall between the cabin and the cockpit that you can't get through to move from the front to the back of the airplane. So you have to come through the doors to access each area of the aircraft. Right here is an onboard fire extinguisher for the cockpit, and then we have the same type of fire extinguisher in the cabin. We'll talk a little bit about the doors. From the inside of the door, should the door not be able to be pulled open, if a passenger is available to help you, they can jettison the door. Typically, our normal procedure is to open the door with the forward or the aft handle. If that won't work, then the passengers can remove this plastic cover and then pull up on the red handle and give the door a push right here near the hinges, and the door will jettison from the airframe of the aircraft. This helicopter can hold up to 6 passengers and a crew of 2. The way we operate here at the state of Illinois is that we will typically transport passengers with a crew of 2. Another important thing to remember is the tail rotor. In my opinion, I don't see any reason to go aft of the cabin portion of the aircraft. There's really nothing back here to concern you with fire or people. So I don't recommend going aft of this portion of the ship for any reason. Should you have an onboard fire, as you can see right here, this hole is denoted by the note there, in case of fire, fight the fire here. So that does give you access up under the engine. And then finally, the other part of the aircraft that can be accessed is the cargo bay. And it's just your typical latch on the door that you'd push the button and then pull the handle. Excuse me. If you notice, it says push right there on the button. That allows the latch to be pulled out. On board this aircraft, we do not have any fire suppression in the cargo area. We do have an indication of smoke, but we do not have fire suppression. We only have fire suppression for the engines, and they act in the same way as the King Air. It's just the agent goes around the external portion of the engine inside the cowling for fire suppression. If you were to have to cut into the cabin to remove passengers, my suggestion would be to come right through the doors. You start getting into the fuel area back here, so probably knocking the door out, which leads me probably to my own opinion of, if the door won't open this way, you may have to break the window to get to the jettison handle inside. Same with the cockpit. These are fairly large windows. Probably the easiest way is to cut through the window to get somebody out. Pretty obvious, but both in the airplane and on the helicopter here, our seat belting system. It's a system that just twists to disconnect the seat belt. So typically it'll be worn like that. If you twist, the seat belt just falls apart. Back in the back, it's just the tab. You just pull the tab and it releases the belt. If you should have a rotor that's turning, or even like a main rotor hub assembly that the engines are still running, I will now tell you how to shut the engines down and, if need be, stop the rotor system. Okay. Typically in this aircraft, you'd find the power quadrant position just like it is now. The quickest way to shut the engines down is to grab the T-handle and just pull it back. The T-handle pulls back the power lever and shuts the fuel off, all with one handle. So this is the quickest and most effective way to shut the engines down and shut the fuel off. Now after that, if you still got blades that are turning, you can reach over and grab this mechanical arm for the rotor brake that operates the rotor brake. You can actually feel the rotor brake pump up with pressure, and then you want to pull it all the way forward and lock it, and that will shut the rotor system down. To shut electrical power off of the aircraft, you've got your battery switches, which are located right here on this panel in this particular helicopter, and typically it's just pulling the switches aft, which shuts off electrical power. In our other aircraft, our other F-76, you'll find the switches above, all aligned above your head right here. But they do the same thing. It's just that the aircraft is configured a little different. Lastly, I think what's important to know is that the CVR, the cockpit voice recorder, is located behind this panel, along with the ELT that's located in the tail boom of the aircraft. And then, just like on other aircraft, you'll see that there's access to where you can fight the fire here near the engine cowl on the left-hand side of the airplane. It's just a duplicate of the other side of the aircraft as well. Typically, we have pins for our landing gear that we always install when the aircraft is sitting stable. In a situation where you'd have to perform an operation on the aircraft, we will show you where our pins would be located should you come to the aircraft after we land. The pins are typically located on a little rack here in the cargo compartment. You would want to remove these pins and then install them to stabilize the gear. And I will attempt to show you where that's at down here at the gear. And again, there's a pin on the other main gear, and as you can see, when it's installed correctly, you'll have the flag hanging there to indicate that the pin is installed and that the gear is stable. We will move to the front of the aircraft to show you where we pinned the nose gear. aircraft. It's on the left-hand side in the cockpit. And what I will do is just show you where the flag is at. This is the flag for the pin, and the pin goes into a hole which is horizontal, pointed towards the console. It's the only hole in that area, so you'll be able to find it fairly easily. And the pin is inserted all the way to the handle. That's how you know that it's fully installed and that the nose gear is stable. Okay, we're going to move on with the discussion to the Bell Long Ranger. This aircraft holds 110 gallons of fuel. Typically, it can hold 5 passengers in the back with 1 passenger in the front along with the pilot. This is a single pilot ship, and we typically do fly it single pilot. It is the aircraft also that you could see running around the state of Illinois. If we start up here at the front of the ship, this is where the battery is accessed. And it's got your typical plug where you turn the plug and release it from the battery. That's fairly standard for most aircraft. The doors on this ship have a simple handle on the outside. And this is how you would access the cockpit. Once again, the cockpit is separated with a wall, so you cannot move people between the cockpit and the cabin. This door opens in the same fashion. It's just a simple handle on the outside. If this electronic equipment was removed, as you can see, you can transport 5 passengers. On the other side of the aircraft, you would notice a fuel cap. The fuel in this aircraft is located right in this area here. If you ever had to get into the aircraft because passengers or crew were incapacitated, the best way is through these plexiglass windows. Then finally, on the left side of the aircraft here is the cargo area. And the easiest way to access this are the 2 snap open latches on this side of the aircraft. There is no access to the cargo bay on this aircraft on the other side. Once again, there really is no reason to move aft of the empennage here where the tail boom is. And on this aircraft, when this aircraft is on the ground, that tail rotor is right in front of you. While we're in the cargo area here, there is an auxiliary battery in this box. It's accessed by these 2 Zeus fasteners, and it's a battery with the same type of disconnect as the battery in the front of the aircraft. I would like to draw your attention to this searchlight. This light can be extremely hot if we have been operating the light. We actually cool this light with an onboard fan. So I would advise to remain clear of this light, the lens of this light at all times. Okay, now we're entering the cockpit on the pilot side, and I want to draw your attention to the battery switches here on the upper panel. You've got 2 battery switches, one for the main battery and one for the aux battery. If we have been flying, they will be in this configuration. You'd simply pull the switches to the rear. 1, 2, both switches to the rear. To stop the main rotor system from turning, once again, you would use this mechanical handle to pump up pressure and then leave that handle in the forward position, and that would slow down and stop your main rotor system. While we're in the cockpit here, I'd like to draw your attention to the throttle handle. This is actually the way that we shut this aircraft off. And so I'm going to demonstrate to you how the throttle is rolled all the way open to flight RPM. And then to shut the aircraft off, we must push this button and then roll this handle all the way toward the pilot to the shut off position. This shuts the fuel off to the engine. And then this switch, this guarded switch, shuts the fuel valve off, which disconnects the fuel line from the engine. So we would want, after we turn the throttle to close, we would want to lift the guard and shut off the fuel valve. Okay, this is the final general aviation aircraft that we'll talk about. This is a Cessna 182. Typically, our engineers and our safety employees fly these around to certain airports to do their work. Again, we'll just do a general overview. Fuel, still the same. It's in the wings, across the top of the airplane. As we move around the cabin. Now the cockpit and the cabin are one area, and they're all accessed from one door. This may be locked on this side just because most of the pilots fly it single pilot, so they leave this one closed and locked. The ELT, there is no cockpit voice recorder on this aircraft. It's just an ELT that's located in the tail of the airplane. And we'll just move around the airplane to end up on the other side, where I will show you where the battery access is. And noted right here is the, it's actually noted here on this door. This is your cargo door on this typical aircraft. And so you'd access the battery through that aft panel. Coming on around to the cockpit of this airplane, the easiest and quickest way to shut the aircraft off is to turn the fuel selector to off and ensure that this red handle is pulled all the way aft. We have one fire extinguisher on board here in the center of the cockpit. And this aircraft is a typical Cessna. Most of the Cessna high-wing single-engine aircraft are configured the same way. On this aircraft, two important electrical components that you want to shut off is the ignition here. You turn that all the way to off and then shut off your aviation master.
Here at Abraham Lincoln Capital Airport, Charter Airlines provides services utilizing the Boeing 737 aircraft. This aircraft is a twin-engine design utilizing turbofan jet engines. The engines are attached to each wing and are only 1.5 feet off the ground. Engine number 1 is on the pilot's left, and engine number 2 is on the pilot's right. It has the capability to have up to 154 souls on board, a crew of 4 consisting of the pilot, the co-pilot, 2 attendants, and up to 150 passengers. I will start by covering some of the hazards associated with the Boeing 737. The engines. Intake hazards. Maintain 30-foot radius from the front and sides while engines are running. Exhaust hazard. Maintain 1,000-foot distance to avoid jet blast while engines are running. Fuel. The aircraft utilizes Jet A fuel with a capacity of 6,295 gallons. The fuel is located in 2 wing tanks and a center fuselage tank. Fuel lines for the engine and the APU run under the main cabin floor to the tail section. Oxygen. The cockpit oxygen system is supplied by an oxygen cylinder located in the cockpit. Passengers' oxygen is supplied by oxygen generators with drop-down masks. These produce high heat when operating and are located in the main cabin overhead. Hydraulics. Hydraulic power is used to operate brakes, flaps, landing gear and doors, and nose wheel steering. Hydraulic reservoirs are located in the main wheel wells and in the tail section. These systems operate at dangerously high pressures, in excess of 3,000 psi. Electrical system. The electrical system consists of two NiCad batteries located in the electronic equipment compartment, which is located just aft of the nose gear. The APU. The APU is located in the tail section. Wheels and brakes. Approach landing gear from forward or aft when fighting a wheel fire, as wheels and tires may explode. The wheels are equipped with a fusible plug designed to melt and deflate the tire when the temperature is excessive. I will now discuss ARF operations. Egress. Doors. Two main doors per side of aircraft. To operate cabin doors on the left-hand side of the aircraft, pull the handle from the recess and rotate clockwise. Cabin doors on the right-hand side of the aircraft, pull handle from the recess and rotate counterclockwise. Slides are installed on all main cabin doors. To open the overwing egress windows from the inside, push in the panel at the top of the hatch while pulling inward. To open overwing egress windows from the outside, pull handle and at the same time push in the top of the hatch forcibly. To assist in cockpit escape or to gain entry into the cockpit, go to the right side of the cockpit. Pull the window release handle out, push the window in, and grasping the forward edge, slide the window assembly aft. To open cargo hold doors, unlock the exterior door handle. Open the control panel door and verify the unlocked light is on. Hold the up to canopy switch in position until the door motion stops. Emergency shutdown fire extinguisher procedures. Engine shutdown T-handles are located on the fire control panel of the lower center console between the pilot seats. Lift, pull the T-handle up to close all fuel valves and arm the extinguishing system. If illuminated, turn clockwise or counterclockwise to release the agent in one bottle and then the opposite direction to use the other bottle. APU shutdown. The cockpit T-handle is located on the fire control panel of the lower center console between the pilot seats. Lift, pull the T-handle up to close all fuel valves and arm the extinguishing system. If illuminated, turn clockwise or counterclockwise to release the agent from a single bottle. External. There is an external shutdown extinguishing agent activator located inside the right main landing gear wheel well area on the aft bulkhead. Lift the guard on APU stop switch and move to off position. If there is a fire, pull down the APU fire T-handle. This action will shut down fuel to the APU and arm the extinguishing agent. Move the spring-loaded bottle discharge switch to discharge. This will discharge the single APU fire bottle. Batteries. Batteries are located in the electronic equipment compartment, which is located just aft of the nose gear. Turn quarter turn to disconnect. Both the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder are located on the right aft side of the aircraft. If possible, protect in place. If in immediate danger, secure the box and maintain a chain of custody record until proper authority arrives to take custody. The ERJ. Here at Abraham Lincoln Capital Airport, American Eagle provides services utilizing the Embraer Regional Jet, the ERJ-145. This aircraft is a twin-engine design utilizing Allison turbofan jet engines. The engines are attached to each side of the rear fuselage, just forward of the tail section. Engine number 1 is on the pilot's left and engine number 2 is on the pilot's right. It has the capability to have up to 54 souls on board, a crew of up to 4 consisting of the pilot, the co-pilot, and 1 or 2 flight attendants, and up to 50 passengers. I will start by covering some of the hazards associated with the ERJ-145. The engines. Intake hazard. Maintain 25-foot radius from the front and sides while engines are running. Exhaust hazards. Maintain 500-foot distance to avoid jet blast while engines are running. Fuel. The aircraft uses Jet A fuel with a capacity of 1,687 gallons. The fuel is located in the 2 wing tanks. Fuel lines run from the wing root to engine naslets. If aircraft has APU fuel lines, also run to the tail cones. Oxygen. The cockpit oxygen system is supplied by an oxygen cylinder located behind the co-pilot's seat. An indicator of crew oxygen use is located directly underneath the co-pilot window. Passengers' oxygen is supplied by oxygen generators with drop-down masks. These produce high heat when operating and are located in the main cabin overhead. Hydraulic power is used to operate brakes, flaps, landing gear, and doors, and nose wheel steering. Hydraulic reservoirs are located in the main cabin wheel wells and in the tail section. These systems operate at dangerously high pressures. The electrical system. The electrical system consists of two 24-volt DC NiCad batteries located in the left nose of the aircraft. The APU. The APU is located in the tail of the aircraft. Wheels and brakes. Approach landing gear from forward or aft when fighting a wheel fire, as wheels and tires may explode. The wheels are equipped with a fusible plug designed to melt and deflate tires when the temperature is excessive. I will now discuss ARF operations. Emergency exits or egress. Cockpit emergency windows can only be opened from the inside. Two overwing emergency exits, one located on each side of the aircraft. They are plug type and can be opened from either the inside or the outside of the aircraft. To operate the release latches and move door to the center of the aircraft. Once free, rotate on one side and remove through the opening. Main cabin door. The door is opened by grasping the handle and pulling it up and out. The door then pops out and slides forward. Service door located on the forward right side of the aircraft. The door is opened by grasping the handle and pulling it up and out. The cargo door located on the rear of the aircraft. The door is opened by pulling out the handle and rotating clockwise to unlock. Lift the door and at the same time pull the lifting rod out of its clip. After fully opening the door, fit the lifting rod into the fuselage recess. Cockpit controls. All controls that are pertinent to ARF are located in the overhead panel. Engine fire extinguishing T-handles are located one on each side of the center in the aft section of the overhead panel. Then swivel down about 80 degrees and shut fuel down, hydraulics, and bleed air into the engine. The handle is turned clockwise or counterclockwise to release the agent in one bottle and then the opposite direction to use the other bottle. APU buttons are located directly between the fire T-handles. Lift the guard and press the button to activate. One button will cut off fuel to the APU, the other is used to discharge the fire extinguishing system of the APU. Baggage compartment fire extinguisher is located directly between the fire T-handles. Lift the guard and press the button to activate the fire extinguishing system of the cargo compartment. Battery switches are located on the left side of the overhead control panel, about midway from front to aft. These are dial-type switches and rotate counterclockwise to the off position. Batteries are located in the nose of the aircraft on the left side. They are equipped with quick disconnects. Both the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder are in the tail of the aircraft. If possible, protect in place. If in imminent danger, secure the box and maintain a chain of custody record until proper authority arrives to take custody. The CRJ. Here at Abraham Lincoln Capital Airport, SkyWest provides services utilizing the Canada Air regional jet, the CRJ-200. This aircraft is a twin-engine design utilizing turbofan jet engines. The engines are attached to each side of the rear fuselage, just forward of the tail section. Engine number 1 is on the left side of the pilot. Engine number 2 is on the pilot's right. It has the capability to have up to 53 souls on board, a crew of 3 consisting of the pilot, the co-pilot, an attendant, and up to 50 passengers. I will start by covering some of the hazards associated with the CRJ-200. The engines. Intake hazards. Maintain 25-foot radius from the front and sides while engines are running. Exhaust hazard. Maintain 500-foot distance to avoid jet blast while engines are running. Fuel. The aircraft uses Jet A fuel with a capacity of 2,175 gallons. The fuel is located in 2 wing tanks and a center fuselage tank. Fuel lines for the engines and the APU run under the main cabin floor to the tail section. Oxygen. The cockpit oxygen system is supplied by an oxygen cylinder located underneath the aircraft. Passengers' oxygen is supplied by oxygen generators with drop-down masks. These produce high heat when operating and are located in the main cabin overhead. Hydraulics. Hydraulic power is used to operate brakes, flaps, landing gear and doors, and nose wheel steering. Hydraulic reservoirs are located in the main wheel wells in the tail section. These systems operate at dangerously high pressures in excess of 3,000 psi. The electrical system consists of two 28-volt DC NiCad batteries located in the aft equipment bay along with the APU. The APU is located in the aft equipment bay along with the batteries. The APU uses two air intakes. One intake is found on top of the fuselage at the point where the vertical stabilizer meets the fuselage. This square-shaped intake automatically closes when the APU is shut down. The other is the shape of an oval hole and can be found on the left side of the fuselage, just aft of the cargo compartment under the left engine. The APU system is equipped with an auto shutdown system, which may activate in the event of an overheat fire emergency. Wheels and brakes. Approach landing gear from forward or aft when fighting a wheel fire, as wheels and tires may explode. The wheels are equipped with a fusible plug, which is designed to melt and deflate the tires when the temperature is excessive. I will now discuss ARF operations. Emergency egress systems. The main cabin door is located on the left side of the fuselage, just aft of the cockpit, and is hinged at the bottom. The operating handle is located in the middle of the bottom half of the door. To operate, push the button on the handle, allowing the handle to pop out of the door. Pull the handle and rotate to the open position. Pull the door out away from the aircraft and allow to fall to the open position. The stairs are built into the door, so stand forward and clear of the opening door. The service emergency exit door is located on the right side of the fuselage, just aft of the cockpit, and is hinged to open out. The operating handle is located in the middle of the bottom half of the door. To operate, push the button on the handle, allowing the handle to pop out from the door. Pull the handle and rotate to the open position. Pull the door out and push forward until it locks into place. Overwing emergency escape hatches. The overwing emergency escape hatches are located one per side about midway down the fuselage. To operate, pull the handle located at the top of the hatch out and up. Push the hatch inward, rotate, and remove from the aircraft if possible. Cockpit windows. The cockpit window on the right side of the aircraft can be opened from the outside. To open, push the round button located just above the right side cockpit window and push the window inward. The left cockpit window can only be opened from the inside of the aircraft. Cockpit escape hatch. The aircraft is equipped with a cockpit escape hatch. To open, lift and rotate the operating handle to the open position. Pull on the hatch if open from the inside. Push on the hatch if open from the outside. Cockpit shutdown procedures. Engine shutdown T-handle procedures. Located on the center right and left of the cockpit glare shield. Locate and push the button marked LH-ENG fire push and RH-ENG fire push to shut down the respective engine. Once pushed, locate the bottle 1, 2 armed push to discharge to disperse halon into the engine compartment. Each engine is equipped with 2 shots of halon. With one engine on fire, the opposite discharge button will function following discharge from the first. Internal APU shutdown procedures. Located on the center right portion of the cockpit glare shield, locate and push the button marked APU fire push. This shuts the unit down and arms the fire extinguishing system. By pushing the button marked bottle arm push to discharge, halon is dispersed into the compartment. Battery shutdown procedures. Located on the left side of the overhead console is the panel for electrical power services. In the top left corner, 2 toggle switches control the electrical power to the aircraft. Switching the DC service switch to the off position secures power generated from an external source. Switching the battery master to the off position secures the power from the battery. The aircraft is not secured from electrical current until the battery is disconnected or the external source is de-energized. Disconnection of the batteries may render fire extinguishing and shutdown systems inoperative. Ensure that the aircraft is stabilized prior to performing shutdown procedures involving this system. External APU shutdown. Access to the external shutdown can be gained by opening the access panel door located below the cockpit window on the right side of the aircraft. Push the APU shutoff button found at the bottom left corner of the panel. Ensure the aircraft is stabilized prior to performing shutdown procedures of this system. Battery disconnect. To access the batteries, open the equipment bay door located on the bottom of the tail section. To open, push the button on the release handle, unlock the release handle, and allow the door to swing down and forward. The batteries can be found on the left-hand side of the door opening and can be shut off by using the quarter-turn quick disconnects. Disconnection of the batteries may render fire extinguishing and shutdown systems inoperative. Oxygen system safety procedures. Access the bottles by opening the compartment door located at the bottom of the fuselage just forward of the leading edge of the wing. To safety, turn the knob at the top to the closed position. Both the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder are located in the aft equipment compartment. If possible, protect in place. If in imminent danger, secure the box and maintain a chain of custody record until proper authority arrives to take custody.